Alright, salutations my friends, it's Wire back again. I do want to do a quick video, if I can, for you guys, explaining the mastery for elemental nodes. The hits have 25% chance to treat enemy monster elemental resistance values as inverted. I think this node is being slept on by a fair number of builds, and I just want to talk about it real briefly to explain how you can use it to gain anywhere from 15 to 20% more damage in your build, as I am using it to do the exact same thing in mine. So, how do we leverage this mastery? It's very simple. You need to have a build that is doing elemental damage, that is hit based, and that can use a different curse or mark to give itself 30% more damage. Most builds, you leverage the one free curse that you get. I don't actually know of any build that doesn't use a curse these days. They're pretty few and far between, and usually there's a very specific reason for that, which is that they're like reducing their max number of curses by the one that you get by default to 0 through some like random stuff that I can't even get into because I don't actually know how you'd reduce your curse limit to gain damage. But anyways, most builds are going to use a curse, and if your build, you can leverage a curse that doesn't shred enemy elemental resistances, but you still deal elemental damage. So if you're a projectile based build, you can use Sniper's Mark. If you're a crit based build, you can use Assassin's Mark. Every build, I think, pretty much can use Punishment, right? That's like generically good. Enemies less than half HP, they take 50% more damage. Whatever you got to do, Alchemist Mark, you just have to use a curse that does not shred their resistances and is hit based and does elemental damage, and then we're in the money. Because this 25% chance for the hits to apply damage as though the monster's resistances are inverted, that does not take into account this your penetration at all. I wanted to explain a simple scenario in math so that we can better understand how it's working, how the 25% chance to invert resistance, invert resistances is affecting our damage. So we have our damage, our 10k, it's coming in. The enemy's got, you know, say they're like Uber Eater or something, they're a boss and they have 50% lightning resistances. How do you think my lightning penetration is going to work with this inversion mastery, right? You might be inclined to think, and I wouldn't necessarily fault you for thinking this, you might be inclined to think that the damage comes in, we see their penetration, the damage looks at it and says, oh, it's 50 lightning res. Well, we penetrate 50% of it, putting it at 0, and then we invert their resistances after that calculation, accomplishing effectively nothing and wasting a passive point. The fact of the matter is this: the wording says hits have a 25% chance to treat enemy monster elemental resistance values as inverted. And that is very specifically just talking about enemy elemental resistances. Penetration, sources of penetration, penetrating resistances is not doing anything to their resistances. You are not actually changing the value of their resistances when you penetrate their resistances. Similarly, when Uber Shaper or regular Shaper attack you with one of their Shaper balls, these have, I guess they deal an average of like 6,000 to 7,000 damage, who cares? And then they penetrate 25% cold resistance. Now, this is not something that you can circumnavigate by just stacking more resistances, right? You can't just get overcapped cold res and then not care about cold penetration like you can with something like exposure, or even curses like elemental weakness, or, you know, conductivity, frostbite, flammability. You know what I'm talking about. Penetration does not consider enemy elemental resistances. You can have 200% cold res against Shaper. Those balls are still going to truck you if you don't deal with penetration in some way. And dealing with penetration from a defensive standpoint is interesting. We can have that discussion later on. TLDR, just shift the damage, right? You're taking cold damage and the mob has cold penetration. Make sure that that cold damage that you're taking isn't cold damage by getting things that say cold damage is taken as fire or lightning instead. That's a way that you can deal with penetration. But how can we leverage how these mechanics work to our offensive benefit? You know, how can we use them to pack a bigger punch instead of knowing about how they work from an enemy standpoint to dodge the bullshit? And other ways to do this as well. But yeah, this is the best way that we can leverage enemies having innate defenses, and then also especially when you come across an arch nemesis mob that has like an antagonistic modifier on it to your build, like lightning resistant and lightning exposure or whatever, you know, those ones that you're doing lightning damage and then you come across a mob that you do like 10% less damage to. It's because they have like 200% resistances or some crap. Let me look this up real quick. Go. Of the Tempest, lightning and shock resistance. Oh yeah, you know, just a casual 75% to lightning resistance. Insane, right? And I know if you've played Righteous Fire, if you've played any cold damage build, I guess if you played Righteous Fire, you're playing Chieftain and you're not worrying about this node. I'll give you that. Okay, fair enough. But if you're playing like a cold damage build, I'm thinking cold dot, right? You're gonna feel the of the ice mod when you come across it. When you feel this lightning and shock resistant of the Tempest, especially cold dot is especially going to feel this because you can't go penetration, but we're a hit-based lightning build, we can go penetration, but we still don't like to see mobs that have 75%, you know, lightning res. That's painful. What do? We invert the resistances. You can take an enemy boss that has 50% lightning res, you can do nothing flipall to all of that lightning res, and you can instead just take this mastery. And this mastery will do way more than just boost your damage by 18%, right? This mastery is assuming the enemy has 50% lightning res, but what about if they have 75? Let's assume the enemy has 75% lightning resistance. Well, I do less damage, but let's check the tree. This is giving me a lot more damage suddenly. This is giving me 25% more damage. And I mean, this is just, okay, so now let's consider another instance. You're in a map that has a monster that has lightning and shock resistant, so he has plus 75% lightning res, and the map gives mobs like a plus 50% elemental resistance roll, right? Well, first of all, I'm pretty sure enemies have a capped res as well, but let's just assume a mob with like 90% lightning res, right? As you can see, the higher their resistances go, the less impactful it is towards nerfing my damage. Like 99% resistance. I'm only doing like, I mean, it's still, I'm doing 30% less damage, which is a lot, but that's a lot less than 99% less damage. Now, what do you think happens if I click this node? I'm not even going to hover over it. What do you think the damage contribution to my build is with this node clicked? I'm going to hover over it and reveal that fact to you. Oh, it's 34% damage, right? An enemy that has higher than... The important takeaway is that this node becomes significantly more powerful against antagonistic mob types, which is, in my opinion, like an extra juicy reason to take this node. It's just like, it makes you so much more universal. Suddenly all of those mob types, because it's not just the specific ones that give like a super juiced amount of resistance that are annoying, right? But it's also these ones that give shifting resistances. Where's that? Or even just these generic ones, right? Arakali, Aberrath, all the God Touch mobs have increased tankiness. Innocence touched, Kitava touched, Lunaris touched, Shikari touched, Solaris touched. I think there's a mob that has a shifting resistance aura that occasionally makes them either immune or significantly tankier to every type of damage. And every elemental type of damage, and it just it changes over time. I don't know everything about this game, and I don't know what every mob does, but I do know enough of them care about your ability to shred their resistances or invert them that this is a super valuable node. And if nothing else, right, if literally nothing else, this node is probably worth 15 to 20% more damage on your build against bosses and uniques, all single target scenarios where you're fighting an enemy that has any amount of resistances other than 0. So that's the main takeaway of this video. I didn't want to make it any longer than it is, but it is pretty long. I wanted to make sure I got a good explanation out for newer players, so I hope you guys bared with me. But even if you didn't, fair enough. I love you anyways. Take care. And the final announcement, I do need to get this out of the way. I am still working on this build. This is the Power Siphon, Int Stack, Power Charge Stack, Wander minor that there's no elegant way to put all the descriptions that accurately fit this build into a succinct one-liner. So I think I'll just shorten it down to it's a power charge stacking, int stacking minor, because those are like the three main things that we're doing. And I guess we're using Power Siphon as it's It's going to be a beastly name no matter what. It's going to be a lengthy name no matter what. I'm still working on this character. What I am currently working on doing actually is not this character specifically, but it's the concept of the character, which is how do I take this concept that's end game and convert it to early game. So I'm leveling up a new character. I am already at the, you can actually transition to Power Siphon mines very early in the campaign. Actually, you have access to Power Siphon as early as level 12 and Locust mines as early as level 8. Okay, so you could technically get this build up and running very, very early, which is what I, of course, did. As early as I got access to both skills, I have been using them, and there's been some struggling. So I've been struggling with trying to level it. It's just kind of awkward. I could talk about some of the pain points right now with you. We could just farm a dried lake, but I really don't want to make this video any longer than it needs to be. I need an aura, as you can see. We're doing some pretty inconsistent lightning damage. Again, the build is... it's not done. Okay, I'm level 33, I guess now level 34. So we're working on it. The announcement that I'm trying to make, that I am going to be tomorrow streaming this character all day, trying to get it into early maps, and yeah, just really seeing what this character has in store for him if he commits to Power Siphon mines from the very get-go. So we're not in stacking, we're not even really power charge stacking right now. Like, I would like to power charge stack, but I just don't have the power charges. So we are just using Locust mines and Power Siphon to clear the campaign, and it's actually going pretty well, as you can see. So what I'm going to do tomorrow, as I just said, I'm going to say it again, is, in this, hey, great example, lightning and shock resistant. I'd really love to have this mastery right now. But anyways, what I'm going to do tomorrow is I'm going to stream probably 8-10 hours, just get through the campaign, get to maps, get to the point where I can feel like this character is at where most people will be at by the end of day 2 to 1, right? I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna no life it. I'm gonna go hard. I'm just gonna play the character a bunch, progress it, and then I'm probably gonna actually make another character and then do it again. And then maybe a third time or a fourth time, I guess, technically. I'm going to play this, do a few runs with this character. I'm not going to do all of them tomorrow, right? Mostly going to be focused on this literal DFKAS guy tomorrow. And we're going to be leveling him, as I've said like 4 times now. Yeah, I'm just going to be getting him into maps and seeing what progression is like for the mid game before eventually transitioning him and then probably doing another run. This is the single target test. You see, it's not terrible, but it's just so inconsistent. Sometimes we do spikes, sometimes we just, you know, don't do much damage. It's kind of the nature of this build, to be fair, but either way, yeah, that's the plan. I wanted to let you guys know about it so that you can show up if you want, if you're interested at all, to like the moment to moment, you know, putting the character to life and getting a, I guess, like an early stage of idea for what the build guide is going to look like, because I am going to make a build guide for this character. Make a build guide for a character that uses like 3 broken uniques that are probably going to get nerfed, but who cares? I'm going to make a build guide for this character for next league. And yeah, I just wanted to make you guys aware of the fact that a lot of your like new player, or especially new to the build, how do I get into the build questions, and how do I level this build if I was trying to play this build from a leveling perspective? Hey, can I league start this build? All those questions and more will probably be answered tomorrow in some capacity, in an exhaustive, lengthy, you know, data-driven, experience-oriented perspective. Probably not. Okay, this is my second run through playing the character and my first time leveling with it, so I'm still going to be working out the kinks, but that's what I'm going to be doing. So if that interests you, yeah, I'm going to be streaming tomorrow, so go check that out. Anyways, I will be doing that, and I just thought I'd let you guys know. So that's the character. That's where we're at with this mastery. We exposed this, a public service announcement video where we talk to you about how incredibly powerful this mastery is, especially against some of the worst mob types that you can face. So it makes your character more universal. I think it's an incredible mastery that if you're at all doing elemental damage, but you're also using projectiles, or you're scaling crit, you should seriously, and you're doing hits. Hit-based projectile or crit based build that does elemental damage, you should seriously consider dumping all of your, you know, you can keep exposure, that's like not going to shred the resistances too much, but like dump your conductivity, throw away your elemental weakness. Okay, stick to that sniper's mark, baby, get that assassin's mark, you get that crit multi, and then invert their resistances to shred them more. And don't worry at all about penetration, because that doesn't ruin the strat at all. Okay, it's a lot of damage on the table just sitting there if you know how to make use of it, and I thought I'd show it to you so that you can at least know how to make use of it. Anyways, that's the video. I love you all, even you, and take care. I'll catch you guys tomorrow.